Oh, the lying liars and the liars.
That came out wrong, didn't it?
Oh my.
That's okay.
All right, well, welcome everybody to tonight's edition of GxG, where we're talking about nothing in particular, apparently.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Bruce.
Normal situation. Hi, Bruce.
So
Apparently
special
Peter
guest
has
this
seen
evening-
it, so.
Special guest this evening is the Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hi,
Hello.
Sam.
Remember,
Hi, Sam.
not just
For
any
everybody-
Sam, the
For
Sam.
everybody who doesn't know who Sam is, he's a moderator at Ars Technica and all-around Star Trek font knowledge.
Uh-oh, he's to blame.
He's a wrecking tour.
If your final Jeopardy category is Star Trek or Nazis, like I'm your guy, like those two.
Or Civil War history.
Yeah, like those are kind of my
I would be interested to see the Venn diagram of Nazis in Star Trek, honestly.
overlaps.
Well,
more
actually,
than
it
should.
overlaps way more than it should. Especially once you start getting into Enterprise.
That's why I would be interested to see it.
You really don't want to see those episodes of Enterprise. They're not very good.
We've just started. I'm already upset.
Oh. We can't have Sam be sad, so I guess should we move on?
I think we should.
Have an icebreaker. It's been making the rounds today. My wife shared it with a bunch of people. The Cheerios How to Dad commercial. Have you all seen it?
No.
No?
No.
Well, you're not a dad, Peter.
You're right.
Has
I didn't
anyone else
watch
seen
it
it?
either.
Well, Jenny's not a dad either, and neither is Katie.
True.
Neither is other Peter or Sam.
Oh, shit. No, I haven't watched it either.
Fine. I thought you guys were up on what happens online. I guess
That's
not.
a great icebreaker, Jim.
Some of us,
Yeah,
some of
apparently.
us, when we go to work, we actually do our work.
Exactly. We don't sit on the computer and chat with each other all day long.
Now,
Yeah,
to
I
be
did
Just
say
saying
fair,
that you guys are saying you've met some of these people then?
which people?
At work? Yes, I've met a few of them. They come in my office and yell at me.
I know
I
nothing.
love my workmates.
You should not let them in your office.
I've tried not to, but they get upset when I close the door.
I don't have a door to close, so I don't have a choice.
Me
My
neither.
office is one big office, and we're just all friends.
Aww.
We're all friends here.
Except the good office is the one next door. They have parties. We're pretty
So
Did
good.
they invite you
apparently,
over?
apparently not friends.
No, well, they are. It's just a smaller office. I seriously love my job.
Okay,
Well-
I believe you.
All right.
I've killed the conversation. Why?
All right. So,
Already?
So what's the
Yeah.
icebreaker?
Well, I guess that was not a good icebreaker then, since nobody else apparently except me and my wife have seen this commercial. So
I've
We'll switch
seen
gears.
it, posted it, and commented on it, but I haven't actually seen it.
Yeah. See,
okay, well we'll switch gears then. Peter, did you get your vinyl today?
actually, no, it has not arrived though.
Oh.
So
Guys, well, you're killing my icebreaker now too. This is not going so well. Mandatory Fun is available on vinyl as of today, and Peter was expecting to have it on
I
his
was
doorstep
totally
when he got
because
home.
I pre-ordered that at the same time I pre-ordered the CD. So I'm very disappointed that it did not arrive today, and Amazon will be hearing from me, I can assure you. Because this is important shit.
You want me to just wander over there? Like, start knocking on doors?
You should. You walk up to Jeff Bezos' house and you say, God damn it, where the hell is Peter's vinyl of Mandatory Fun?
Nah, I'm pretty sure Jeff Bezos has, like, hounds to release. I was just thinking about walking over to the campus and just randomly banging on doors.
Yeah, but you do that anyway.
Well, I mean, that and other things.
They probably don't even listen to you anymore, do they?
No, they actually just usually call security when I enter.
Oh, all right. Okay, so anything else you'd like to try, Jim?
You can ask, or I'll ask Sam, and then we'll ask everybody. Star Trek, old Trek versus new Trek. Which Kirk?
Oh, obviously old Kirk.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I answered before.
See, here's the thing. There's old Kirk, and then there's movie Kirk. Movie Kirk is the finest incarnation of Kirk. And nothing against Chris Pine. He's fine in the new films. That's not one of the problems I have with those movies. But Shatner between especially Wrath of Khan and Undiscovered Country. That's my favorite Kirk. If it was strictly original series Kirk, it'd be more of a toss-up. But you throw the movies in there, and it tilts it heavily in his favor, I think.
Okay, well, Sam, if you had to create your own crew of the Enterprise off of old Trek, Kirk, Spock, Sulu, etc., and new Trek versions, what would your mix be?
Both the same crews and different actors and different timelines, or
yeah, just old Trek versus new Trek. Would you take the new version of Sulu or the old version?
Oh, I gotcha. I would go old Kirk, old Spock. Probably. I think I'd go old all the way around. Actually, to be honest. I can't think of a new incarnation that I like a lot of them, but I can't think of one that I like better than their original counterpart.
So one of the problems I face is that I have difficulty sort of reconciling George Takei with old Sulu. I think I like the new Sulu better, honestly, from a character standpoint. I like George Takei a lot. He's got a lot of personality, a lot of political philosophies that I subscribe to as well. But at least in terms of the Star Trek characters, I think I prefer the new one better. And that might just be because it's flashier. I don't know. So I'm curious whether or not personality of the actor plays a part in it as well.
Wait a minute, and that was it. You're blinded by the lens flare. I
am blinded by the lens flare.
And that was actually when I was thinking about Sulu. I had that same kind of temporary mental dilemma. I think you've got a point there, because Sulu in the original series and even in the movies is very two-dimensional. There's not a lot to him. Not that there is in the new ones, but he is flashier. He's, more if they'd gone anywhere with Captain Sulu, with George Takei in that role, that'd be a different story.
They should have.
But I agree.
They missed out on such a golden opportunity.
Can I throw a monkey wrench here?
No.
No. Well, I was going to ask, has anyone seen Star Trek Continues, the most recent fan series?
I want to say I've seen, and I get it mixed up. I think I've seen all of the Phase 2 New Voyages stuff. I think I've seen at least one Star Trek Continues, but I couldn't say for certain.
So they've got 3 episodes out now, and the premise behind it is that 5-year journey continues on, and they've got they actually have other actors for Kirk, Spock. Sulu is played by Grant Imahara of the Mythbusters.
Yeah, I knew he was doing that. I don't think I've seen it now that I think about it, but I knew that he was doing one of those.
As a fan series, it's pretty spectacular. The production values of it, they managed to just nail the original series kind of set design and sounds and everything else. The acting might I don't think that Kirk or Sulu or anyone else is in the running here.
Well, the acting on pretty much any fan series is almost universally dreadful, but they have gotten better as a whole.
Well, that's one thing I noticed with the Star Trek New Voyages / Phase 2 guys. They had kind of the same thing. Advances in technology. They had a little bit more money. Their production values were pretty good. The acting was all pretty universally bad, but they are, I don't know how many, several fully produced episodes and several years into their project at this point, and they are getting better. If you watch one of the newer ones, it's not professional acting yet, but it's markedly better than kind of when they first started. It was just fans acting the parts. They do get better.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a roommate in college that was I don't know if he was a film major, but he took a lot of film classes. Maybe he was visual arts. Maybe that's what it was called in my university. And he, when he was younger, made a lot of Star Trek fan films that were just horrible, just absolutely horrible. And when you talk about that reminds me quite a lot of watching some of his student films and even some of the stuff that he did on video with him and his friends. It was heartfelt, right? There's no doubt about it, but the set design and everything like that was young, putting it kindly.
I was in a production very much like that when I was in high school. I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit, but
I think it's interesting that it provides such fervent fandom, honestly, that there are these many people that want to participate in the shared universe and to incorporate the characters into actually being the characters or being something like the characters. You don't see people making Star Wars fan films. Well, you see lightsaber battles, but beyond that, I don't see a lot
Those are
of
basically
character
glorified tech demos, but they're fun.
They absolutely are. Some of them are fun, there's no doubt, but there's a lot of sort of Trekkie fandom that is more character based that I don't think you find with other sci-fi properties.
Well, I think the Star Trek universe is not that the Star Wars universe isn't, but it's so fleshed out and so detailed. And if you are a fan of that setting, then you are a fan of that setting, and it encourages you to think about placing a character in that setting. I think it's one of the reasons why Star Trek Online has been pretty popular. I think it's one of the reasons why you see a lot of fan films. It's one of the reasons there were a lot of pretty mediocre novels out in the 90s, is people get excited about that universe and they want to put a character into that universe and kind of live it vicariously. I think that is interesting. You don't really see that to the same extent with a lot of other properties.
Well, and now there's the Kickstarter.
Yeah, the Axonar stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now. Out of the $10,000 they were looking to raise, they're sitting at $101,000.
So what is that for the people that don't know?
Sam?
Is this the same? Is this the Axonar project, or is this something different?
No, that's the Axonar.
Yeah,
just what they're doing on Kickstarter specifically.
Yeah, they did. They've actually done a couple of Kickstarters to fund different parts of that. It's basically they wanted to do. It's a fan film in the strictest sense because it's a fan writing it and it's fan produced, but it's got a lot of professional actors. It's got, is it Michael Hogan who played Colonel Ty on Battlestar Galactica, and the actress that played Ellen Ty is in it. Richard Hatch is in it. GxG Hertzler.
I'm sorry, was that Richard Hatch, the survivor, or Richard Hatch?
Richard Hatch, the BSG guy.
Okay.
And GxG Hertzler, who played General Martok on Deep Space Nine, is in it. There's another Star Trek person. Oh, the guy who played the Vulcan ambassador on Enterprise reprises that same role. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So they've got it's a lot of professional actors, and they're telling the story of this conflict between the Klingons and the Federation in kind of the decade and years just prior to the original series. And it's kind of a cool chunk of Star Trek history that a lot of fans wanted to see on screen for a long time, and they're just going to kind of make it happen. And they just released a 21-minute prelude to Axonar is the name of this big battle. They just released a 21-minute prelude to Axonar that's a documentary-style thing that is all of the actors talking in character as though they're being interviewed about their roles in this conflict after the fact. It's actually really cool. The production value is phenomenal, and most of the actors do really bang up jobs. If you get a chance, if you're interested in Trek at all, I recommend that little. It's right on their Kickstarter page. That little prelude thing is pretty neat.
Yeah, speaking of which, due to the dramatic technological advances in Google Plus Hangouts, I'm using the Showcase app to try to keep up and put links to these things within Hangout. So hopefully the viewers that we have right now, which by the way are more than one, actually see this. So there you go. We'll find out. By the way, anybody who's watching this, please feel free to leave comments and questions, both for us, our special guest, or whatever else you feel like leaving comments or questions about. Not that it's an invitation to be rude or anything. That would be rude. Don't do that.
All right, well, since we're on sci-fi, has everybody seen the news about Babylon 5?
I did just today, yeah.
I don't want to get my hopes up too much.
So,
but
I have to admit, I've heard a lot about Babylon 5. I've read a lot from JMS in comic book form, but I have not been able to actually watch Babylon 5.
Is it because you find it to be disinteresting and bad, or you've just
no,
never...
I missed it while it was on, and then I have not. What's the best way to describe it? The cost of buying into, say, season 1 was never justified based on what I thought the payback would be. If it was part of a streaming package, or if it was being replayed on a channel that I had already subscribed to at a time where I was aware of it, then I would have watched it. But now trying to find it on the cheap.
Yeah, it's not on Netflix or Amazon Prime for streaming.
Yeah, it's
it
difficult.
was on Netflix at some point in time because I started watching it.
Is it available on Hulu?
You know what? I don't know. I didn't look.
Let's see. I'll check real quick.
Alternate means, but I have not searched those out particularly for this show. But I've heard a lot of great things about it. And I'm interested both in a sort of revitalization of it, as well as obviously watching the original.
Well, I know that Peter says he's not particularly excited about it yet because he wants to see it in post-production. But the news announcement that I saw said that JMS, his own studio, has reached the point financially that if a big studio doesn't pick it up to want to distribute it and make it, that he's going to financially be able to push it through anyway. So he really wants to do it. So I thought that was exciting. I can't wait to see a return to that universe.
All right. Well, I'm seeing.
It is not on Hulu or Amazon.
Right. I'm seeing paid options on Vudu and Google Play on per episode basis. I am seeing some less than legitimate looking sites that are advertising the potential for Babylon 5, but I'm not about to click on any of them to find out.
So I honestly haven't looked, but this brings up an interesting question. So there are, sort of, I hesitate to say fundamental sci-fi series, but at least well-regarded sci-fi series that appear to be unavailable to the casual viewer. Babylon 5 is a good one. Perhaps BSG, right, the latest Battlestar Galactica. I haven't gone back to look to see if that's available on any sort of streaming medium. But given the high regard for these shows and the lack of availability, do you think that fundamentally reduces their impact? Everyone loves Firefly, but Firefly is available on Netflix. I can watch it anytime I want, and it's a great show. But perhaps part of the reason why it's great and well regarded is because it is so available.
I don't know, because Farscape is available for streaming, and I don't see people defending that with the fervor that they defend Firefly with, or talk about it with, not defend.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Farscape was amusing and interesting and a reasonably good sci-fi program, but it's not Firefly. It's not the cleverness. It's not the level.
I tried watching Farscape, and I did not think it was very entertaining. I just didn't like it.
I liked it. I thought it was super fun. Like I said, sci-fi goodness, blue aliens, hot chicks. What else do you need? Guns,
Story,
a living ship,
Muppets.
Muppets. I mean, who doesn't love Muppets?
That's right.
I honestly had a hard time seeing past the puppets.
Really?
I think it was just
a lot of the tropes of it I liked. The idea of the living ship, the grown ship, the organic ship was cool. The mix of the characters I liked. I had a hard time seeing past Pilot and seeing past Rigel. There were many times when they were just puppets, and I couldn't get beyond sort of the fourth wall.
You can get past the concept of a living ship and being out in space. But
but that's different.
Correct.
Yeah, the puppets were kind of in your face the entire time. I mean, it was definitely...
It was just like, hey, we're here, we're puppets.
Puppety.
Hey, look, there's a dude in a suit flopping this foam thing around. Yes, exactly. Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube guy. Whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
And I like the show, and I've honestly tried to rewatch it, and I have actually started rewatching the first season, but I just have difficulty sometimes getting past the fact that they are puppets, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I need to lose 30 pounds so I can cosplay Chiana.
You'll have to dye your
head
too.
I can get a wig.
Okay. And see, I think part of this might be also how long a series ran. With something like Firefly, it was like, okay, one season it left a lot of people just wanting more.
And I think that that's part of why it's. I don't think that it's available. That people like it because it's available. I think it's available because so many people liked it, and it had such a short run that it wasn't as hard to make available.
Right. Or with something like Star Trek that's got such a huge fleshed out canon, you know, people go back to it because there's so much to it. With something like Farscape, I already forgot what we were talking about. With Farscape, it's like it's kind of in the middle there, where there's enough of it that people who were into sci-fi probably saw a decent bit of it, but there's not so much that there's an enormous expanded universe already that you just have to keep going back to explore.
I have two comments.
Remind yourself about.
The first comment is, I actually find Star Trek kind of overwhelming because there's so much to it. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, I watched some original Star Trek in reruns when I was in college. I've watched some TNG. I've watched a little bit with Janeway, because, you know, the female captain, I had to see some of those. And I've seen most of the movies, but, like, I'm not a huge, like, Star Trek encyclopedia like Sam over there, in part because I don't even know where to start. I mean, I could start from the beginning, but, you know, it's like, there's another series like that. Oh, it's like Doctor Who. Do you start with the new ones, or do you start with the first Doctor?
Yes.
It's kind of overwhelming, you know? It's, well, I mean, I
think that's beyond overwhelming. I think that's intimidating.
Well, okay, you know.
But in terms of content, does Doctor Who have as much as Star Trek? Are they similar? Because I kind of feel like they're kind of. I mean, if you could find all the Doctor Who's.
I think if you were to start Doctor Who from the beginning and try to marathon it, compared to say Sam's old project, watching all the Star Trek, I think you'd grow old and die before you watched all of Doctor Who.
Now, it's funny that you say that because you can do it. Retro TV on Monday started showing from the very first episode all of the old Doctor Who's. They're going to run through.
Right. Unfortunately, there is no Retro TV affiliate in my local television area.
They've got about 14 stations in the United States, so that's a very limited audience.
This is not a big network, I can assure you.
So my first thing was Star Trek is kind of overwhelming because there's so much of it. And there's also, like, I feel like, as in many fandoms, there's, like, real fan, and then there's, like, it's okay, I've seen a lot of it, but I'm not a fan, capital F. And then there's, like, no, dude, what's Star Trek? And then below that, there's, like, those, you know, 5 guys who insist that Star Wars is better than Star Trek and the universe cannot coexist. You know, like that episode of Phineas and Ferb where it's Lord of the Rings versus Star Trek. Have you seen that one? Because it's fantastic.
Nope.
Okay, you should see that one.
I will see it when Jim tells me to do so while sounding like Doofenshmirtz.
So if I told you it right now in Doofenshmirtz's voice, you would drop out of the Hangout and watch that show?
I wouldn't drop out of the Hangout to do it, but I would put it on my list. Peter? Well, you wouldn't want me to drop out of the Hangout, would you?
No.
See? But if you do it, I'll put it on my list of things to watch right now. Come on.
It's called Nerds of a Feather, Doofenshmirtz. Nerds of a Feather.
So you have to watch it, Peter.
Yeah?
That was terrible! I know you can do better than that.
Come on, Jim.
All right. So, Peter, you're going to have to watch it. It'll make you totally evil and a much more fun person to hang out with if you do so. So, all right? Do it, all right? Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, great. Now, since you've done that...
So close to Edna from The Incredibles. Guys, just right there, right next to the line.
You got to slow Edna down a little bit.
All right, so tell me where in Phineas and Ferb to start, Jim.
Nerds of a Feather.
Nerds of a Feather.
Oh, he's writing it down.
Oh, so old-fashioned.
Oh, and my other thing was, because I always equate Farscape and this other show because I found them on the Sci-Fi Channel at the same time. Do you guys remember Lex?
Yes, we loved that show.
I thought that was terrible.
It was horrible. It was bad.
I mean, I feel like embrace your... Can you please mute your fucking mic?
Seriously.
I feel like you need to embrace your genre and accept what you are, okay? And Lex should have just been a porno. And then that's fine, okay? That's fine. There's nothing wrong with pornography. Pornography is a healthy outlet. There are some pornography films that are actually pretty good. And if Lex had gone whole hog, over the hump and admitted that it was pornography, it could have been a strong, decent, amusing science fiction porn. Circlet Press could have put out the fucking book version, okay?
But then even less people would have heard about it because it wouldn't have been on the Sci-Fi Channel.
But because it's still sci-fi. They could just put it on in the middle of the night like Skinamax. But because they were trying to keep it within a reasonable rating, it was like it didn't know what it wanted to be. It didn't know if it was a sci-fi story that was pretty good, like Farscape, with some romance in there, but basically sci-fi. Or it didn't know if it was, just a fucking space fantasy robot dick sucking thing. And so I think the problem with Lex was the inability to accept its fundamental purpose, or decide on its fundamental purpose even. Is it a porno, or is it sci-fi that can be watched at 8 o'clock on prime time?
I don't know, but I have the feeling that global searches for Lex probably just went up by 300%.
Yeah,
I feel like that description with the sound effects needs to be the description on Netflix of that show.
Definitely put it over the
Good night, everyone.
Needs to be typed up.
Okay, so just kind of going back to what you were saying about Star Trek just being too big to be approachable. Maybe you didn't say it in those words. But
I'm sorry, were we talking about that?
yes, we were.
I was gonna say something about that, and then
So we're gonna go back to that.
Something about it being too big.
Yes. Yes, Katie, it was too big. Anyway, so because we have Sam here, and Sam is an expert, Sam can tell us where's a good place for somebody who's intimidated by Trek to get started.
Well, there's an important thing to remember about Star Trek, that in this day and age, most science fiction in the mode of like Battlestar Galactica is very story arc oriented, and each episode depends very heavily on stuff that happened before. That wasn't, with the exception of like some 2 and 3 parters, that wasn't really the case with Star Trek until you got into Deep Space Nine.
Right.
So in order to feel like you know what's going on in the overall narrative and in the universe, there's not really necessarily, although I'd certainly recommend it, but there's not really necessarily a need to go back to day one and watch the entire, look at the different series and find one where the concept seems appealing to you, and watch that one. You're gonna, it's not gonna, you don't have to go back to the beginning to know all of the backstory with, different political affiliations with these aliens and these aliens over here and this piece of technology. That's all stuff that gets fleshed out as a series progresses, but all of the story stuff, the arcs don't really come into play. That was a Ron Moore thing that happened with Deep Space Nine, which I enjoyed, and I think it made it pretty compelling television. But until you get into
the place to start.
Yeah, until you get into like the 3rd season or so of Deep Space Nine, it's not necessary to pick up from the beginning and start. You can just find one of the series that seems appealing and start with that one. You don't even necessarily have to start with the 1st season of that show. It was very episodic until they got heavy into Deep Space Nine.
Now, see, I went back and started to watch the one with Will Wheaton, because was it on NBC or something?
It was syndicated. In the U.S., it mostly showed on Fox.
Okay, so we didn't have Fox in the backwoods town where I grew up. There was no Fox. Sometimes we got to watch it when we went to visit my aunt who lived within 100 miles of D.C. But so we didn't have it when it was live on. So and that's part of the reason why I didn't watch it all the time, because my dad's totally a sci-fi guy. I'm sure we would have watched it if we got it. But so I went back and tried to watch some of it, and it just wasn't part of it is that my free time is few and far between enough that if something's not really riveting, I'm not gonna binge watch it,
And there's a pretty heavy. Almost every Star Trek series has, unfortunately, a pretty heavy initial investment. The first season, sometimes the first couple of seasons are a little bit shaky. Most of the time, it's because
sometimes you just find a really crappy episode like Code of Honor.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you just happen upon a terrible episode, and that a lot of times one of the series will start out trying to do what the series before it did, and it doesn't work. And it takes them a couple of seasons usually to figure that out. So there is kind of a heavy initial investment, and that's something that can be a put off, I guess.
So Sam, Star Trek expert, have you read Red Shirts?
I have not, and I feel terrible for it. I read the first chapter because it was it was free on Kindle or something.
Mm-hmm.
What is wrong with you, man?
I did buy it, and I've got it saved in Kindle. I just haven't actually read it.
It's interesting to me because I totally loved Red Shirts, and I'm sure there were jokes that I didn't get. Again, there's the level of fanatic and then fan and then don't know anything about it, and I'm kind of in the middle. And so a lot of the jokes I got, a lot of the okay, well the red shirts are going to go here and they're going to die because they're the ones wearing the red shirts, and so and there's a science kind of joke. It's very Galaxy Quest. If you liked Galaxy Quest, you'll probably really like Red Shirts.
Well, the thing about Red Shirts is that it uses a lot of the environmental tropes kind of Star Trek, but it doesn't rely all that heavily on the conventions of Star Trek. It's more relies on the general conventions of television science fiction in general. It just uses settings that are more familiar to Star Trek fans.
Yeah, I think if you kind of got the basic premise of the book, you really didn't miss out much.
Well, like I said, I liked it even not having seen every Star Trek ever, so I thought it was good.
I liked the first chapter I did read. I just never got around to finishing it.
I found that it started off strong, but the end of it was it's sort of like The Return of the King. There's too many endings.
Now, see, I really liked the end. I felt like they did a really good job of getting just meta enough without going over the line. Oh, you thought they went too far, huh?
Spoilers, sweetie.
All I said was meta.
No, there was no discussion of what action. Again, she towed the line appropriately.
Yeah, okay, I'm just trying to make sure. That's all, because that's a good book that's worth not spoiling.
Don't get me wrong, it was good. By the time it got to the third ending, I was kind of done with the endings.
Okay, I can deal with that.
That's his magic number. Two is okay. 3, it's too many. It's right out.
3
even 2 might have been too many, but it was just too many endings. I'm not sure if there's an appropriate number or not, but there were too many.
Shall thou count to 2?
They started to be a little bit too cute, too.
I love that movie. Okay. All right,
I love that I can drop that in and have everybody get the reference immediately. That's what I love about you guys.
That's good. All right, Jim, what's next on our list?
Well, since we were talking about books, one of my favorite books has been announced that it's going to be coming to TV. Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency.
Yeah, they've already done that for TV before.
They did, and now it's going to come back again. The rights for the novel and character have been obtained. They're writing the pilot, and they're going to be shopping it shortly, apparently.
Okay. Do we know anybody who's specifically announced as being involved?
Hold on. They've got a writer attached to it?
Yes. So I have an interesting story about. Well, it might not be interesting. It was interesting to me. So the writer attached to it is Max Landis, who wrote a movie called Chronicle, which was a fairly. It depends on how you look at it. It was a fairly intelligent superhero story. He also has done he's very, what's the best word for it, vociferous about his opinions on both Twitter as well as YouTube. And he's done a Superman treatment that's gotten a lot of good favor a couple of years ago. And he posted on Twitter about 3 days before the announcement came out, and he says, what if there was a show about a detective who was psychic and lazy but not a very good detective? And I tweeted back to him like, hey, that sounds like Dirk Gently by Douglas Adams. I don't know if he was truly psychic or not, but he pretended he was. And then 3 days later he comes out and says that he's the showrunner, basically, the writer behind this particular interpretation. So I'm glad to see that. Max Landis is a smart dude. He's on Google+. He's on Twitter. You can follow him at Up to My Knees, at Up to My Knees on Twitter, and I think Up to My Knees on Google+, although I'd have to go back and look for that. But he's well worth your time to follow. He had an interesting video a couple of weeks ago called The Slap, which was all about couples or even random people getting together and deciding to slap one another and how they were going to approach it. It's a very interesting video. As interesting as the 4-minute video about these couples slapping one another is, the more interesting video is sort of the behind the scenes about the negotiation that happens between these couples, if you will.
Weren't they actually strangers?
Some were, some were not. It depended on the actual couple themselves. Some were strangers and some were, boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, involved, I think is probably the best way to describe it. And then there's a great behind the scenes of Max himself getting slapped, like 30 times or something like that. Very cool stuff.
I wonder if that was a condition of getting people on the show to slap each other, was that they also got to slap him.
So Slappy Guy is the one who's writing Dirk Gently? Or who's producing Dirk Gently? Or...
Both.
I could see that totally working.
Yeah, I'm all
he's a good writer. He's a phenomenal writer. Does a lot of good treatments. He's got a lot of strong opinions on YouTube videos about comic and comic geekiness. He's a good guy.
So on a related comic note, did you guys hear about Frank Queen, I think his name was?
This sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, it does.
Is this the guy who is suing people for
Randy Queen.
Criticizing some of his old drawings?
Yeah,
so
that never works.
So there's a Tumblr called eschergirls.tumblr.com that is pictures from comic books of women posed in ways that women can't actually pose without breaking their spines.
Right.
Just kind of part of the whole, draw attention to the way that women are treated in many comics and the industry in general. And it's a pretty tame Tumblr, honestly. I mean, for the most part, it's not like, oh my God, did you see this? It's more like, look at this one, you guys. Oh my gosh. There's one where Power Girl's tits don't attach to her body. They're literally round. And and the caption just says, "Not how boobs work." And so it's not to me it doesn't feel at all like a whiny whatever, not that there's anything wrong with people whining if they need to whine, but it's a very cool Tumblr from the little that I looked at it. And so this guy Randy Queen got pissed off that he was posted there and sent them a cease and desist. And then there was a whole, you can check it out at their Escher Girls Tumblr. She put a repost from her blog. And so he has since, I should say, since I brought it up, he has since apologized. He has posted on his Facebook wall, "Hey everyone, just wanted to clear up a few things that happened this past week. I have been having a very hard time in my personal life. Da-da-da-da-da. There were posts on the web criticizing my artwork that were brought to my attention and added to my stress, and I reacted without thinking it through." So, I give him props for, apologizing and assuming that he's serious. I mean, everybody has shitty days and wants to, kill people, And I can see how you would take any comment about your art super personally if you were having a bad day. But at the same time, this is a pretty serious problem if you're a woman and you have any interest in the science fiction, fantasy, comic industry. I mean, the complete. It's basically the very basest way of implying that a woman is an object and not a person. That it's just the way the body is posed, and it's all about what the body looks like for the female characters versus the male characters who are strong and whatever. And I'm not. It's getting better, totally. There's plenty of examples where it's better than it was even 10 years ago.
Well, I think even just as a side note to that in particular, apparently his art in particular, Mr. Queen's, has improved in that respect as well.
Indeed, that's what I was going to point out. That Randy Queen is kind of a bad girl pinup artist. probably is the kind way of putting it. He does Vampirella and Darkchild and these
one of the complaints was that Darkchild is a child. Like, she's fairly young, and she still has, the gigantic tits and the, scantily clad and all that kind of thing.
Well, not being familiar with, I don't think I'd ever actually heard this guy's name before today when I saw a write-up of the entire situation. So,
yeah, they actually have an update on their Tumblr where with his apology in it, and the person who runs the Asher Girls Tumblr making comments on it. I pasted it in the chat because I can't put it in the showcase.
I've already done it.
Oh.
See, Jim, you fall asleep on the job, and
I didn't fall asleep. I just can't share it in the showcase.
Well, you didn't even look.
Sure I did. I don't have an option to share anything there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I put it there anyway.
Stop assuming I'm wrong, Peter.
Boys, you're both pretty.
Yeah, but it's so easy to assume you're wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, see?
Sam, aren't you glad you're a guest star?
I am.
Are you not amused?
Sam was like, I thought we were talking about Trek.
No, that's awesome. I actually was a little bit worried about it. I didn't want you guys to feel like it had to be Trek all night. And actually, the thing with the comic book art reminds me of a similar issue that exists in the tabletop role-playing game community. There was a Vice article posted last week about different anecdotes with women who had been tabletop role-playing gamers and had encountered just these awful situations with game masters that would try to force their characters into really creepy sexual situations. And
ew.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a whole. I'll do the same thing. Jim didn't put this in the chat because I don't have access to anything. But for starters, it made me very thankful for my gaming group. My gaming group is like about a quarter female by population, and by comparison, when I'm at the table, it doesn't feel like we're terribly mature. But when I read about the awful,
gamers, you don't say.
And it literally broke my heart reading about some of the stuff that my fellow gamers have had to endure. And it goes back to the kind of sexism that was baked into that community early on, and a lot of it, unfortunately, as much as I revere his contributions to that hobby, by Gary Gygax and his opinions about women aren't going to be interested in this game. This isn't for them. He never said, I don't want women to play this or I don't like women, but he just had this attitude like, he openly and unabashedly pandered to the young hormonal teenage boys who were the core Dungeons & Dragons audience early on, and that has had this kind of lasting legacy of it not being a terribly inviting hobby for women sometimes. And I don't follow comic books all that closely, but I had read part of that story, and it reminded me of this piece that I had read about that kind of thing. And with Gen Con coming up, it kind of puts it all into perspective about, as much as I celebrate that community and I love being part of it and I love that hobby, there is that dark side to it a little bit.
So in case anyone doesn't know, what is Gen Con?
Gen Con is it's a convention. It is the largest, I know, at least in North America, the largest convention that's dedicated to gaming. And it was started as actually a war games convention. It predates Dungeons & Dragons. But a big focus of it for a long time was tabletop role-playing games, Dungeons & Dragons, and its ilk. But these days it's everything. Collectible card games, board games, war games, LARP, computer and video games now. And then, like everything else, like a Comic-Con or an Origins or a Dragon Con or a PAX, it expands to encompass kind of all nerdy hobbies. So you get celebrity panels and seminars, and there's cosplay and stuff. So it's a massive, and that's in Indianapolis every August, and it's the single greatest thing about living in a city that is otherwise aggressively mediocre.
I think
aggressively mediocre.
I like that.
I like that.
I don't hate the place. I'm just saying.
I think the comparison to, especially old school role-playing materials and older comics and some new comics is a really, really good kind of comparison because, like, if you look at the original, like, D&D Player's Manual, I mean, there's stuff like chicks in chainmail bikinis. You know?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, that is very well across that entire industry. That was the style of artwork for any representation of any woman for a long time, and still is with some artists. It is better now, especially in mainstream games like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. Pathfinder, especially, Paizo Publishing that publishes that, has tried. I think they've made a good effort at improving that situation.
Yeah, I've been really happy with the options in Pathfinder. We started a game about 6 months ago. We've only managed to play 2 or 3 times, but just like the character creation process felt like they thought maybe perhaps women might actually play this game, and like that alone is, I mean, that's a huge step, because I mean there's like I've been lucky in my gaming groups in that I've never had the situation where you were talking about, where I had a creepy dungeon master who wanted me to roleplay rape, and but like even the marginalization is like that's step 1, and then step 25 is the rape scenario, so I feel like as
there's
many,
a lot in between.
Yeah, as many things as we can take out, then that makes it that much harder to get to the scenario where a dungeon master would think it would be okay to have a female character roleplay a rape scenario. Unless she had specifically said that she was interested in that, because that's a whole different thing, and that's fine.
Yes, but that requires informed consent.
Yes, informed consent. We're all about the informed consent.
That's right.
But and it was one of the points. I posted a fairly lengthy screed about this on Facebook when I read this article, because it kind of incensed me. And one of the points that I had made was, not only is that awful and a terrible thing to do to another human being, but that defeats the entire purpose. If at any point you are making your players do something that they don't want to do, and it was creepy on top of stupid, with more creepy on top,
and that's completely different.
Just pissed me off.
That's completely different from when my brother-in-law is the dungeon master and my sister is trying to seduce the NPCs, because that's fine.
If it goes the other direction, that's different.
Well, and also they're married and they know what their relative limits are, and
going back to the informed consent.
Yeah, that is the key.
So that was going to be a question that I had as a sort of non-tabletop gamer. Whether the tabletop gamers in the group find more satisfaction from being the dungeon master, the games master, or being just and I'm using air quotes, regular player or participant in?
I can answer that because I've been both sides of that a number of times. I love setting up a world and building it and getting everything richly detailed, but then I want to play in it, and it's like, here, run this for me so I can experience the thing that I've set up. And it's been a long time since I had a regular gaming group, but when I did, I was fortunate in that the guy who was best man at mine and Romy's wedding was the kind of guy that I actually built the world in conjunction with him, and then he was like, I'll run it, and so I got the best of both.
So you got to create the world and play in it.
Yeah.
That kind of depends on somebody's personality, right? I mean, some people enjoy creating worlds and some people like playing in them. I don't really think it's an overall generalization. I think more people would rather play than put the work into building a world.
It's definitely more work to be the game master, although if your players are putting in a decent amount of work, it doesn't have to be significantly more work for the game master. And it depends too on how much original content they're coming up with from week to week. Like we've done, so my gaming group consists of my sister, her husband, his brother, his wife, and when we all get together, there's a total of 10 kids, and the oldest one is 7. So our priority is we want to play a game. we haven't got the time to invest, hours and hours and hours of prep. And so the past couple of games that we've done have been modules that, you literally are reading the thing out of the box. And hopefully the Dungeon Master has read over it beforehand at least once, but, there's not a whole lot of creation as in starting from scratch. Like one of my best friends from college, who's a fantastic game master, would have this whole binder, and he's also an artist, of monsters that he's drawn on the front, and then he's written their stats on the back. And so when you would encounter one of these monsters that he came up with, like completely out of thin air, but based on the rules from the Monsters Manual, he would flip the card out and you would get this beautiful drawing that he had done of it. And, he would say, you see 10 of these, and they're here, 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 and here. So, I mean, like, I think for him, certainly part of the enjoyment comes in the preparation, but also, like, and then usually the running, I think he was just annoyed with us because we always went the wrong way, or he would, make a fight that he thought was going to be super easy and it would kill us, or the converse would happen where he made a fight that he thought was going to be really hard and we would just steamroll it. And, but, it was kind of, like, for him, part of the fun was creating, and for us, obviously, we were lucky as hell to get to play with him as a game master. But I like both sides. It just depends on how much time I have, because if I am going to be a game master, I want to have the time to really put into it. Like I just kind of accidentally agreed to join a play-by-post game in Google Plus, and
accidentally.
Yeah, a little bit. And like I haven't even had time to look up the rules yet. And like, well, that's not true. I've loaded the webpage. It's a White Wolf game. It's based on White Wolf rules, but it's mostly storytelling based, so I don't have to know the rules really, really well, but I need to at least understand the world. And like part of me, for me, that's part of the problem with being a game master is I can't half-ass it. I have to know all the things. If I'm a player, I can do a little, like I still really want to know all the things, but I can get by with a little less knowledge. But like even like playing Pathfinder, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to read all the books right now because I need to read all the books before I can play it. I mean, I need to know all the things.
The problem reading all the books.
Yeah, not just what is my character like, what is my race's background, but all the things.
Because then how do you play? If you haven't been involved in this world, you won't know all this other stuff that's going to be going on in the background, and it's very overwhelming.
Yeah.
Not to overshadow anyone, but I'm curious about Sam's opinion.
Oh, no, you're fine. No, I'm actually currently doing both. We did in both D&D 3rd edition 3.5 in my current group, and then moving into Pathfinder. We did a lot of original content. Me and two of my best friends did kind of what Jim had described. We built in 3.5, kind of built a world together. It was my one friend's kind of idea, and then we helped him flesh out different parts of the world, different races. And then we took turns DMing in that world. And we're kind of doing the same thing now, except we're actually running Paizo's adventure paths for Pathfinder. And even those take a fair bit of prep. I'm running Skull and Shackles, which is their kind of pirate-themed campaign, which is a lot of fun, and then another friend of mine is running a different one. So I get to do both on a fairly regular rotating basis. And for me, it's the difference between hosting a party and attending a party. I enjoy hosting. I love it a lot. I like it a lot because I do, like Katie said, I want to prep that as well as I possibly can. I know a lot of GMs that are low prep GMs, and that's a valid style. But I like to have everything designed, ready to go, every possible permutation of the situation that I can think of. And all laid out. When I GM, it looks like a freaking command center in front of me.
Right, and I believe you recently shared a whole picture.
Right,
and based on all that.
Yeah, and that's part of the preparation. Is part of the enjoyment for me. And then also, if the players are having a good time, that's very rewarding for me. But it is a lot more work, and the converse is attending a party. When I'm playing, there's no real pressure to have really prepared for any of that, as long as I know my character, their kind of role-play motivations, but also mechanically how they work, and I can sit down in the world and go. I enjoy both pretty equally. I think if I had to GM all the time and never got to play, it would get frustrating, and vice versa. I'm glad that I get to do both, kind of alternating.
I will say that that's the one thing I liked about 4th edition was the way that they created the character sheets, so that you had like big, huge. You could, if you printed it out a certain way, you had like big, huge cards that said, "Here's your number 1 ability, dummy. Here's your number 2 ability, dummy." So you didn't like, if you didn't want to do a whole lot of prep, you really could just like scan your character sheet and be successful in using all of your abilities, because they're like, you know, in blinking stars with neon lights and stuff. Whereas in some of the older systems, you really kind of had to dig deep. But of course, my complaint about 4th edition is the same, which is that, like, you don't have to know anything to do anything. If I can be a fighter who can climb walls, why the fuck would I ever play a thief?
For the flanking bonus.
Tell us how you really feel, Katie.
That's okay. Now in Pathfinder in the new advanced classes, they've got the Slayer that is like a fighter that gets sneak attack damage. So that's going to be... You don't have to choose anymore.
I need to make one named Buffy.
I made one for my secondary Gen Con character named after one of the guitarists in Slayer.
Awesome.
There you go. That works. Since we're talking about role-playing games and setup, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a vaguely role-playing-ish like game that requires very little setup and is easy to get started with and have a quick game, and that's Boss Monster, which is actually a card game, but it uses a lot of D&D and also video games type elements to it.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, I've gone ahead and shared. Put it into the showcase for anybody watching, but basically, the whole point is that you play as the boss monster against 2 or 3 other players, 1 to 3 other players. You're building dungeons, and you have to defeat heroes that are sent through your dungeon. And of course, the first person to gain the requisite number of souls from defeated heroes wins.
I've heard of that. I've never played it. That sounds like a great deal of fun.
It's from Brotherwise Games. It's basically just a set of cards. If you're playing with only 2 players, you use a subset of the cards. With 3 players, you use a little more. With 4 players, you use the entire deck. But it playing with some young relatives. When I was back home recently, it took us a little while to get past the initial familiarization stage, but once we did, it was a lot of fun.
It looks like a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does.
And this is coming from a non-gamer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something I think a lot of people would enjoy picking up just for the sake of it.
Yeah, if it's as easy to get into and play as like Munchkin, I could see it being hugely popular.
I think it's probably a little easier than Munchkin. And
that's saying something.
The flip side of that is that it is not expandable to the extent that Munchkin is. It's basically just the game the way it is.
To be fair, let me weigh in with the outsider's perspective. I found Munchkin difficult is not the right word for it, but some of it was convoluted. And that may just be because you have to play it a half a dozen times to get used to it. But it was one of those things, the first couple of times we played it, we had to look up the rules quite frequently, had to find out, how things worked. And perhaps to a gamer that's no big deal, but to a non-gamer, or at least non-RPG player, the idea of having to go and look up rules all the time is slightly frustrating.
Right. Well, I would think
you don't do that with every game that you play. I mean, you pull out a board game, you read the rules to everybody. Everybody ignores you because they're all drunk or something, and then you have to read them like 20 more times during the whole game.
Jenny, to be fair, you are correct, but I think there's a lot more. I was gonna say social buy-in with regular board games. Like I think of Monopoly with all the rules and everything like that. There's more people that understand those rules. Whereas when it's Munchkin, a lot of times you might be playing with 4 people, one of which may understand the rules.
For that particular game, because normally, I don't know, like maybe I just play
but
with people
with
that play
like-
games, but we play a lot of games that we've never played before.
Right, with something like Monopoly or Sorry or any of the other very common board games, chances are pretty good that most everybody who's at your gathering has at least a passing familiarity with how it's supposed to work.
Even more, and I use the word unusual board games like Settlers of Catan or Dungeon or Carcassonne are fairly straightforward. With Munchkin, we had to read the rules a number of times trying to figure out when we could use different cards at different...
Munchkin functions more like a collectible card game than it does like a board game. And I would say it's almost like a combination collectible card game / role-playing game. And part of the, I think, draw but also drawback for a non-gamer of Munchkin is that it's referential. That a lot of the things that are on the Munchkin cards are in-jokes, and if you don't get the joke, it's just, well, why the fuck is that there? I don't understand that.
And I freely admit I am far outside of their target audience, right? But sort of the casual, non-RPG, non-traditional gamer coming into it. That's all. Just an outsider's perspective.
Maybe I forgot Munchkin, but I thought that most of the rules were written on the individual cards.
There's still an order and a certain amount of things you can do each turn. And
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So even if some of the specific actions of a particular card are still spelled out.
So the
we also
rules
made the mistake
don't
of trying to.
fluctuate.
We also made the mistake of trying to play with the boys one of the earlier times that we brought it out, and only one of them can read.
Oh, yeah,
So-
I did see how that would be a problem.
Yeah, so being able to read the cards is a pretty big, stopping point.
You should try Flux.
I have not played Flux, but I did send the Wizard of Oz themed Flux to my oldest sister. No, I'm sorry, not my oldest sister, my other sister for the holidays last year, and she said that that everybody in her family really enjoyed it. So that gives me a good feeling about it.
We
I
really
think it's
like
good.
Carcassonne.
Oops, we take it.
Carcassonne
with
as a
us.
family is good. Sorry.
That's okay. I was just gonna say, I think it's easy enough to play because we take it with us to bars sometimes.
We liked, or at least I like Catan, right? Settlers, Seafarers, the expansion set. There was a very fun game, sort of light RPG, obviously, but still fun for a board game.
Hey, Peter, there's a Monty
one?
Python Flux.
Which Peter?
Doesn't matter.
Yes.
There's an everything.
All the Peters.
All-
How about
all of
everybody?
All the Peters.
There's a Monty Python Flux.
Well, that's what I think I have to order while we are on this hangout.
It's Prime eligible.
Really? That's
Monty
it.
Yeah.
Python Flux.
There's
And
also,
all the keyboards go clicky clicky click.
there's also Cthulhu Flux, but that one can wait.
I hope he posts his credit card number in the chat window because I'm sick of using Jim's.
I'm not sick of using
What are you
gems.
talking about? That's the card I use.
Oh, shit.
So is that why his limit is always pegged? Jeez. Jim, you need to protect that card number a little better.
I know everybody was going to be using it.
I'm enjoying the miles.
I will wait to place my order with Jim's credit card until
Good
I'm
answer.
on the floor at DEF CON in 2 days' time.
Oh.
With public
Oh,
Wi-Fi.
all right, next topic.
Speaking of which,
You are a
Jim
brave man.
No, he's not brave, he's crazy.
There's a
With
thin line
Jim's
between
credit
brave
card?
and stupid. Are you
so tell us
taking
what
any
you're doing.
electronics with you at all, Peter?
I think I'm actually going to stick to paper and pencil.
I think that sounds like a very wise idea.
So, again, right, they're sort of playing the newbie. Let's roll back and talk about what DEF CON is.
That's a good idea. Peter,
Am I
walk us
starting this
through
one
it.
here, or is someone
You-
else want to?
well, you're the one
You're
going.
walking us through DEF CON. Go for it.
Okay, so DEF CON is the, I guess let's call it, it's not really the underground hackers conference, but it definitely doesn't have the air of respectability that something like, say, the RSA conference would have. So this is really the hackers conference that you go to where hackers are maybe doing slightly edgier things. So this and Black Hat, which takes place about the same time in Las Vegas, is notable for having what is described as the most hostile network on planet Earth. And the general rule of thumb is that if you connect a device to a network, there's pretty much a guarantee that someone's going to be trying to intercept whatever you've got going on. And there are some people who present some pretty epic hacks. So I guess there's been some previews this year. Someone, I guess, has figured out how to take over some aspects of airline control systems through the in-flight Wi-Fi. And I guess another group is going to be talking about sort of a Consumer Report style listing of automobiles that are sort of hackable. And that's kind of I guess interesting to me because there are some researchers here at the University of Washington that a few years ago demonstrated the ability to panic stop a car over the cellular network, I believe through the OnStar system. So imagine traveling along at highway speeds and then all of a sudden your car panic stopping. So these are the kinds of hacks that people...
That sounds like a wonderful opportunity to test the capabilities of the California State Highway System.
Yes. So these are the kind of hacks that people do. Every year they've got sort of, I guess, the wall of sheep, whereas if you are caught passing credentials across a network and people have sniffed out your credentials, these get posted publicly to shame you. I have no doubts that probably someone can protect themselves at DEF CON, but it's kind of asking for trouble, and paper and pencil seems like the best way to take notes at this point.
Well, I wonder how many fresh journalism majors, like getting their first job covering a conference, get sent to this thing and immediately regret it.
You just want to have your burner laptop. So I thought about bringing my MacBook Air, but then I was going to have to just dump it into the chipper shredder when I was done. So,
or at least use a disinfectant cloth on top of it.
Yeah, well, it comes with that polishing cloth.
So is this professional or personal? Why you're going?
Actually, a little bit of both. So my research has gone a little bit more over to questions of privacy in our newly smartified cities. That's the technical term, smartified.
You must live somewhere different than me.
Well, Seattle's a little different than any place.
We learn our cities up good with the techie webs and the tubes. We hook the tubes to the things. I believe that is the intertubes of things.
Now, is that under or above the monorail? I get confused.
We actually, to save right of way, we actually just run it right along with the monorail.
Fair enough.
Those things are awfully loud.
Like Christmas lights, the tubes. So that's kind of the research angle. They've got a lot of kind of cool civil society sort of talks scheduled this year, and so I'm looking forward to those. And then there's also kind of just the personal element. I had some friends that were going, and I'd never been, and so we're giving it a go.
So I have to admit, going to DEF CON would be cool as hell, but it scares the ever-living shit out of me.
Oh, totally.
Both the idea of electronically going as well as personally going. I suspect that in this day and age there's a lot of surveillance, for lack of a better word. Although I appreciate a lot of the things that come out of DEF CON from an openness perspective and from a revealing things that should be better protected that are not. One of the coolest things that I find coming out of DEF CON is that a lot of times they have the competition for the longest Wi-Fi signal, which is sort of like the biggest dick for geeks, I guess.
Yeah, the longest Wi-Fi signal is kind of a fun one. My late uncle-in-law was a ham radio operator and also a bit of a nerd. And in Montana, well, Peter Bauk will remember how far away Dry Head Overlook was from Billings, Montana, but that was about a 40, 50-mile stretch, and he used to aim a directional antenna back at his house from Dry Head Overlook and managed to connect over Wi-Fi.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it's a pretty clear shot, but even then...
Yeah, it's line of sight, but it's pretty solid.
It's a long line of sight. Well, Peter, you've scared the crap out of all of us.
Apparently.
I'd be afraid to go with my cell phone even turned off, personally.
Actually, so I gather that mobile devices. So I've read a few things that recommend that if you do bring your mobile device, is you want to wipe it. Particularly, you want to wipe the. So you want to wipe the whole system image, but you definitely want to clear out the SSIDs of wireless networks that you connect to, because there are wireless networks that will. So what your phone does is it'll say, "Hey, I'm looking for, Joe Bob's internet, which is maybe your home access point," and so people have what they call pineapples set up that'll say, "Yeah, I'm Joe Bob's internet. Connect on up."
Fun stuff.
And so your mobile phone will go through the process, basically be like, "Oh, I found my home Wi-Fi network. Great, connect up." And then apparently there's all kinds of nefarious things that people can do, and oftentimes unpublicized vulnerabilities in the OS. And
boy, that sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, no, they recommend just keeping your phone in Wi-Fi mode or in airplane mode, and then using it to take pictures, of course, or whatever else you want to do with it. But they even suggest that oftentimes QR code scanning is maybe not a good idea because it'll probably direct you through a link that has probably got some malware.
Or at very least through Lemon Party.
But these are people that are telling you they're doing something bad.
Yeah, at least they're upfront about
go out on a regular
risk
basis with your phone just.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that these people don't just sort of go into hiding every year, probably. So we're probably subject to some targeted hacks, or we could be subject to some targeted hacks at any point in time. However, I gather that there's kind of a spirit of, I guess, mutual ownership in this conference, and so you're kind of inviting, I think, a little bit of probing at your electronics if you bring them with.
Oof. Yeah. I don't think I'm going.
Let's see, smart, access cards for your business. I guess these are. I've read, at least in one place, that these are kind of seen as a badge of honor to clone people's corporate ID cards.
So you won't be bringing your ID card from work?
I've got a magnetic strip on my university ID, which only grants me access to a business that has public hours most of the time anyway. And doesn't give me access even during the summer since I'm not taking courses. So I think I'm pretty safe there.
All right. Good luck. We expect a full report when you return, presuming you return yourself and alive.
Right.
Well, I'm worried about the microchip in my brain getting hacked.
Well, there's a hat you can wear for that, Peter.
Yeah. Line everything you wear with tinfoil.
My brain chip has an airplane mode, so I don't know.
It's not enough.
So wait, Sam, when you
the Tesla coil just right.
Hey, Sam, when you put your brain chip in airplane mode, do you just sit there and stare off into space until somebody puts you out of airplane mode?
Essentially, I'm working it out because I can't.
I thought you called that Vicodin mode.
Sometimes.
Clonopin mode.
That's eat a sandwich and stare at things for a while mode.
I love
no,
that
no
movie.
mayonnaise.
All right, can we move on to something a bit less depressing now? Or scary.
That was very informative. That was fascinating.
Yes, it was.
DEF CON is not depressing. It's a little scary, but the reality of the situation is, like you said, who knows when you're being hacked? Like Jenny said, you go to DEF CON, you expect a certain level of hackiness, but you never know. I mean, on some level, like by having a public presence, even on Google Plus, because there are still people who think it doesn't exist, by having any kind of public presence, you're weighing the risk with the benefit, I mean, that's just part of life now, I think, is understanding that if you're on the internet and you have anything that's ever public, whatever you're looking for by posting public, whether it's customers or just more traffic or just new friends, you have to weigh that with, the fact that people are going to be able to find you. And that's why we don't use our kids' names publicly on the internet.
Well, even if you're posting it non-publicly, there's the risk. And
see, I have more of a problem with that than I do with, like, if I post something publicly to Google Plus, it's in Google. I expect that it is public. It bothers me more when I post something that I feel like I think it just went to my friends and it actually didn't, like when Facebook likes to change their settings and then you have to go and find it again. Although they haven't done that in a while, so maybe they've finally learned that people don't like that. I don't know.
Yeah, sure they have.
I think they're just spending time developing a way to do it without getting caught.
They're spending time screwing over the people that have pages on Facebook instead of people.
So if anyone wants to really nerd out on this topic at some point, I have an advisor who specifically has looked into the sort of economics of the situation with Facebook, where they sort of change the contract terms after you've sort of signed up. Anyway, my advisor was recently talking at a European Data Protectorate something or other conference where they were talking about how do you provide consumer protections for a service that, according to traditional definitions, was free. And so obviously, Facebook is extracting some sort of monetary value out of people, but there isn't sort of a monetary exchange between the person whose personal information is being bought and sold and Facebook as an entity. So is the end user who is logging into Facebook and providing Facebook with all the content, are they truly a consumer, and should they be covered under consumer protections? And I think that by asking the question, I think it's kind of leaning towards the answer is yes, but that's not necessarily the case in terms of law today. And so there are actually, the Federal Trade Commission and the European Union and a bunch of others are kind of trying to look at how do you regulate this thing.
I think it's tough to describe a user of Facebook as a consumer of Facebook.
Well,
it's an interesting question, honestly.
You're paying something, and so it's actually kind of hard because a lot of our sort of economic models are based around this notion of a flow of money. But clearly the information that you're giving Facebook has some monetary value, at least as Facebook is able to do other things with it. So it's
I almost think of broadcast medium where the audience is sort of secondary, that the business relationship is between the broadcaster and the advertisers, and that the audience is the sort of captive capital, if you will, between that relationship.
Well, part of the difference there is that with like a television relationship, the viewing audience, they have a lot of aggregate information about that audience. They don't have a lot of specific information about specific users of
Fair
the
enough.
service.
And that's part of the point, is that your personal information is you actually end up sort of in a bit of a bilateral monopoly with Facebook. I mean, So if you consider the case of Facebook, there isn't another social network with the same kind of reach as Facebook, and so realistically, you're not going to be able to get the sort of network benefits of Facebook on Google+, even though I have dropped out of Facebook now and am just a Google+ user. You're not going to get.
We're so proud, Peter.
Golf clap.
So brave. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. But on the other hand, Facebook also.
I'm Peter, and I'm a G+ user.
But there is no other Peter Schmiedeskamp that now Facebook can extract personal information from. So.
Can you say your name one more time, please?
Oh shit, that's how it's pronounced. I lost a bet.
That's what I was thinking. I thought it was Schmiedeskamp.
Shut up, Jenny Copland.
Schmiedeskamp.
That rolls off the tongue. I mean, it honestly does.
No,
It's only 3 syllables. I mean.
Now, the next
inefficiently
question
needed
is, how
13
many of you can
characters.
spell it without looking at it?
I can't.
It
I
starts
made
with an
no
F.
words.
It's
what's
only 3 syllables, but in our defense, it's very front-loaded with consonants.
Yeah.
That's true. It's it's that hooked on German phonics.
Well, Springle is German, but it doesn't have that many consonants at the beginning. Although
I
I
don't
guess
think
that's
they
three.
use phonics in German.
See. Well, that's 4 versus 3,
Valid point is valid.
All right, who's the statistics major?
Not I.
You know what I think is interesting?
I took an elementary statistics course. So.
I didn't even take statistics in college.
I never took.
How the hell are you a chemistry major? Never mind.
I've taken some.
I took some calculus.
I took physics for humanities majors.
All right, I guess that probably leaves me as the faux statistician in the audience then.
I knew there was a ringer.
The statistician.
Is what?
The faux statistician.
A faux statistician?
Faux statistician?
I like that. That's good.
Like Faust.
The damn liar.
Yeah, I show up to class with all the people who study statistics, and they
that's
mostly
bad.
understand it, and I mostly don't.
Well, if you are majoring in faux statistics, I can't even say it now. Get into politics then.
Autistics.
Photistics.
It's hard for me to determine who's more drunk, Jim or Jason.
That's him.
Statistics.
See, Jenny's
not.
with us. She's drunk too.
Yeah, I need a bartender that just like would refill my drink. My drink's been dead for some time.
That's why you need
You know
to
what?
hang out with your wife.
Peter, we've got space at the table here.
Wait,
Stage
where?
right.
Yeah, feel free to invite your wife to the next hangout.
Oh, yeah, I could do that.
She can carry a good conversation.
Yeah, she's a better conversationalist than I am.
That's for sure. She looks better too.
That is true.
Okay,
Good
well,
way to kill
well,
the
we just
conversation,
killed-
Peters.
Great.
So what I find interesting is that our last name, Jason's last name, is completely phonetic. And people still fuck it up.
That's not my last name. I chose that. Wait.
Yes, dear.
No, you didn't choose that. That was given to
I
you.
sure
by
did not choose
I think my name's pretty phonetic too, because you can have the long O without the E, and people still don't put the E in.
What, Copeland?
Yeah, they put Copland, and I'm like, that's Copland, a land full of cops.
I get in
said
trouble when I
Copland.
put the E in.
Oh my.
Maybe they're trying to go with something like an Italian flair, like Copeland.
That's a spicy meatball.
I had a student when I was teaching who called me Miss Lingua.
Lingua?
Lingua.
What?
What the heck is that?
But I mean,
Okay.
but it's not just kids. I mean, like we get not robocallers quite so much anymore, thank God. But I mean, like it's Lemka,
Oh.
It's not, I mean, and like you get Lempicka, and like your mom used to get some crazy stuff too, didn't she? I remember your mom telling stories about like she wouldn't answer the phone if they pronounced her name wrong because she would say no,
Oh, yeah,
nobody
that
here
was-
by that name.
That was a cover charge.
Everybody
Bryce
pronounces
Petrie.
my mom's name wrong, but she has a different last name than me.
Hmm.
I didn't think you could fuck up mom, but apparently people did on the phone.
Yeah.
Totally.
They're like, is Moom there? Who's Moom?
You?
When I was working at Bestsoft, we had a receptionist for a little while who was from New Zealand, I think it was, and Jason used to call me just to hear her voice. And my mom called one time and left a message for me, and this was back in the day when you had like carbon copies for the messages, instead of just emailing it or whatever. And so she wrote me a little message and left it on my desk, and it said from, and she wrote mum, M-U-M.
No, that's typical all in like generally Britishy English speaking places.
That was just my
we lived
first
in New Zealand
experience
for about 4 years, and so that was pretty common to hear people talk about their mum.
You and your damn coriander.
Damn coriander. It's the same thing as cilantro.
I used to think that it was mum until I watched Doctor Who, and all of a sudden, or no, I'm sorry, M-A-apostrophe-A-M. I used to think it was ma'am until I watched Doctor Who, and then it appears that it's mum, which I had no idea that was the
like
derivation
the
of
Mum?
it. Exactly.
All right. Well, okay.
Provincial American here. Hi.
Hi, provincial American.
Provincial American.
When we take his dad out for Italian food, we have to help him pronounce the words.
Meatball.
Excellent. Well, so if you want more of that Kiwi accent, I just posted it over here in the chat. I don't know if you want to share that out. But there's a fantastic little Webernet series on YouTube, which is all about illustrating the Kiwi accent, and it's quite clever. They talk about Pinkton. He's a whale, and he's beached ease.
Okay, well that is saved to our showcase here, so our viewer and/or viewers will be able to view.
So wait, we have viewers and we haven't had any questions tonight?
Yeah, no questions.
I have not had a
Did you open up the questions thing, Peter?
Absolutely. This time I remembered, and I've been checking it. Because I remember that one week where I opened up the questions, never checked it the entire time, and then Jimbo yelled at me later.
Wow. You got yelled at by Jimbo?
I know. Jimbo doesn't like to be ignored.
You must have done something really wrong.
Nor should anybody ignore Jimbo, ever.
So I have to ask, is anyone else running on battery power on their laptop with this Hangouts, or is everyone...
My Surface Pro is plugged in. So.
Yeah, we're plugged in.
Yeah, it's plugged in.
Man, I get like 10 hours on my MacBook Air, except for on this Hangouts where I'm like...
Quick, go find the wall wart.
Yeah, I guess I have to go do that. Either that or switch back to my iPad.
No, then you'll lose your lower third, and we don't want that.
Yeah. They would have to make money of being lower thirdless.
Exactly.
I'm currently running at about 35% CPU just for the Hangout itself, so...
I'm thinking I'm running higher than 35% here. I actually shudder to pull open the activity monitor here.
Well, you'll be happy.
Oh, you ready to blow? I'm fucking ready to blow, alright?
You don't have it always up in your...
What?
I don't know what this thing is.
Well, you'll be happy to know that my system is absolutely pegged. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this thing's pegged.
You guys need to buy new computers.
You guys are geeks.
Dude. Hey, at least we're not saying that
Okay, I actually like to use my laptop for Hangouts more because my fancy new computer, we have an old-ass webcam for, and the camera's not as good.
As your laptop?
Yeah. Because I got a new gaming machine, and the machine itself is awesome, but we didn't buy a new camera, so we have these old cameras that were old when we bought them because they were cheaper if you got the generation before what was actually out, and that was like 4 or 5 years ago at this point. So it's functional, but it doesn't it's not very good at, you know how a lot of webcams when you change how far away or how close you are, they automatically sense the light and stuff. It doesn't really do that so well.
Yes.
I like using my laptop because I fried my desktop and haven't put together a new one because I figured it's really old and I may as well just start over again.
Yeah, good idea. You should.
So I like using my iPad for the Hangouts because when I'm sitting here in a chair, I've got a metal music stand and I've got the smart cover thing for it, and so it just sticks to the metal music stand.
I have to be honest with you, Peter. Your iPad sounds very tinny when you speak. This is much better.
Well,
All right. All right, moving on to other topics that we actually
of the
had
magnetic sticking of your iPad.
Oh my. All right. Let's see, Jim. I think.
Don't disparage me like that.
I'm going to disparage you all I want, damn it.
Next topic.
No.
Next topic.
You disparage him, and you get to listen to him later.
That's right.
Okay.
I will.
No, you do. We can hang up.
All right. Anyway, Jim had brought this up earlier. A Wrinkle in Time.
Yep.
Disney movie.
What?
Jennifer Lee, the
There's
writer
already
and
a Wrinkle in
co-director.
Time.
Yeah. They're doing a new version. The woman who wrote Frozen and was I think co-writer on Wreck-It Ralph is doing a new version of Wrinkle in Time.
So I have a funny story about
Wait. Let's rewind a little bit. So, not to talk over you, but I needed to interject here at this point.
Uh-oh.
So the question about Frozen is it well written or are the songs phenomenal?
Why not both?
So let me ask then: is there one that is it the combination of the two, or is one particularly better than the other? And the only reason I ask is because the movie is written by a different person than the people that wrote the songs.
Right.
The people
That's
that
not
wrote
unusual.
the songs are hilarious.
Now, the people that wrote the songs were also the ones that did Avenue Q and the Book of Mormon. So, not to disparage A Wrinkle in Time, but is the fact that it is being done by the same person that quote-unquote wrote Frozen, is that a good thing or a bad thing compared to the songs from Frozen that were written by different people?
Well,
I don't
having
know.
not
I
seen
like
Frozen,
Frozen.
I have no idea.
It's a
I
good
liked-
question, Jason. She's got co-writer credits though on Wreck-It Ralph.
Okay,
And
I'm just
that
throwing
was
it out.
That was very well written.
Yeah,
Wreck-It Ralph was awesome.
not a
too.
musical.
Yep, Wreck-It Ralph was awesome. There's no doubt about that. It's just tossing it out for a conversation topic.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Anyone else?
Now you killed it.
Boom, yeah, sorry.
Were we just talking about Rocket Raccoon?
No, I was gonna
No,
say
but we
something,
can.
but-
Oh. Sorry, I was fetching my power adapter there.
So would you like to talk about Rocket now, Peter?
We still haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy. For
No,
a while.
neither.
Wait, I thought we were talking about Wrinkle in Time. Are we done?
Oh,
Well,
let's
you
keep
killed
talking
that
about
one,
Wrinkle in Time.
Jason.
Whoa, shh. All right, thanks.
Okay. I'm going to shut up. You guys can talk about what you want.
Doesn't Jim have a list?
Yeah, we're going through it.
Yeah. That was Wrinkle in Time was off the list.
Yeah, I got to check it off now.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, I'm here to help. Sometimes. On occasion. When I feel like it. And there you go.
Since I'm looking at my list right now, not that this is typically a geek thing, but the sole survivor from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie passed away.
Good old Marilyn Burns.
You're looking at my list, Peter.
And no, actually, I'm looking at the item I'd put in the showcase, ready to put up when you mentioned it. I am.
That's coordination.
Right there for you.
Awesome.
See? How old was she anyway?
65.
No, that is not old.
No, not at all.
Jim, on the other hand, is old.
Oh, thanks, Peter. Don't tell anybody. Oh,
Your secret.
okay, everybody's watching.
With all of us. Yes. All right. What's next?
Well, I might as well close out the movies topic and ask if everybody has seen the trailer for the upcoming Mad Max movie. Jason is vigorously nodding his head. He seems excited.
I'm
Intrigued, I think, is probably the best word for it.
Yeah, why just intrigued?
It doesn't feel like it has raped my childhood.
You know what? That's a good description for it. I was watching the trailer for it, and all I could think of was, yeah, that looks like fun instead of that looks like forced, like so many other things do. And I mean, they've got the vehicles going through the Australian desert. They've got the spiky bits on it. Looks good.
I had not seen that.
Really?
It piqued my curiosity. I'm skeptical, but open-minded.
Well, that's why I say intrigued.
So how close do you think they're going to be able to stick to the aesthetic over the course of an entire movie?
I don't think at all,
without
honestly.
resorting to a lot of more modern filmmaking tropes.
I don't think at all. The first one was so barren.
And I think, if I remember correctly, it's the same director, isn't it?
That I don't know.
Is it going to be all lens flare and shaky cam though?
What is
don't
wrong
care.
with that?
Peter,
As
it's
long
gonna
as the ships look
have
good.
exploding vehicles and car chases in the desert. What else do you need?
Yeah. Well, lens flare and shaky cam, obviously.
There may be a support group for you. You seem to be obsessing.
It's entirely possible.
I like J.J. Abrams.
Oh, he's an okay filmmaker. He just relies an awful lot on a couple very well defined.
I don't know if I would agree with that. I don't necessarily find him an okay filmmaker, but I think he's a really good producer and idea man. I think he's got a good stable of people around him, right? That he surrounds himself with with a good team.
So you're saying he's kind of like George Lucas, in that if he goes off too much on his own, he's going to get in trouble.
I don't know if I would. What's the word? I was gonna say as
He
deep.
really
as George
needs to
Lucas.
stop and call Lawrence Kasdan.
I don't think he's as far off the tracks as Lucas, but I think you're sort of in the same ballpark.
So what would happen if we took J.J. Abrams and Michael Bay and had them make an action movie together?
No.
You'd have a 3.5 hour trailer.
No one would have any clue what the fuck was going on.
Again, hang on a second. I think Michael Bay is a decent producer, but as a director, I think he's shit. Right? So, am I wrong? Did he produce Top Gun? But Tony Scott was the one that actually directed it? Wasn't it Michael Bay that got them the entree into the military for Top Gun?
Ooh, I don't know, but I just rewatched Top Gun the other day.
And it. All right, good. Thanks, Peter.
Okay, here's a question. Where does Uwe Boll fit into this?
Oh.
No?
Nowhere?
Fucking crickets. That's where he fits into it.
Okay, just making sure.
I have
Really
no
hard
idea
to
what
love
you're
him.
talking about.
He's a really bad director.
I don't think really bad director really quite
No, that's
captures the essence.
War criminal, I think, is more.
You have probably seen something that he did. You may not want to remember that you've seen something.
Didn't he do Blood Rain? Was that him? God, that was horrible.
Yes, Blood Rain 1, 2, and Blood Rain the Third Reich.
Oh God. I had no idea they made 3.
Yep. 3 of them. It was 3 too many, but
I think I watched about 12 minutes of the first one before I just blacked out and woke up later. It was that bad.
So I am not sure how I managed to misconstrue Michael Bay with Jerry Bruckheimer. Go figure. It could be the alcohol, or it could be that they're both schlockmeisters. I'm not sure. But Jerry Bruckheimer was the producer for Top Gun and not Michael Bay. So my apologies. I'm sure they came from the same school, though.
So Michael Bay
Jerry
has done
Bruckheimer,
nothing
we're very
redeeming.
sorry. When you watch this later, Jason didn't mean it.
The only
As you know, we're watched by all of the top talent everywhere, in everything.
Including that
Shatner.
asshole from the Nerdist who never answers my messages.
Shatner was totally asking to be
Chris
on this
Hardwick.
week, but I said no, we're having Sam instead.
Yeah, Sam totally trumps Shatner. You
Hell
know.
yes.
Now,
That's
if
gonna be
Nimoy
so much
calls
hate
us up,
mail.
Sam, I'm sorry to say that if Nimoy calls up, you're out.
That's fair. I accept that.
That's truth. Yeah. Nimoy is definitely
Good choice.
Yeah, I think I would have no problem with that.
You guys
I
have
want
all
to
seen the
say-
car commercial with Nimoy and the guy from Heroes, right? The new Spock.
Zachary Quinto, yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
It's pretty good.
You have been.
I was gonna say, except I can't find any documentation about this, so I apparently made it up. We were talking about.
So you're like Fox News.
Oh my God, he belongs with us.
when we were talking about Michael Bay, I was about to say that his only redeeming quality was that he is an EP, although I think really only in name, on the Starz series Black Sails, which is actually a really romping good pirate show. Mm-hmm. But now I don't see that in his filmography anywhere, so I apparently just imagined that.
You know what? We all do it.
A little more sandwich
He's a
time.
producer.
You thought to yourself, he's got to have done something.
I was like, I thought I saw him on something.
I used to get him confused with somebody else who has done, like, throwback 80s movies. And do you remember who it was? I can't remember. But so I finally, to remind myself...
The guy who's doing Kung Fury?
No. So to remind myself which director I liked and which director I didn't like, I had to always remember that Bay is bad.
Bay explosions.
Well, yeah, whatever you need to do to keep them straight, I guess.
He is an executive producer on Black Sails, so I wasn't wrong.
This time.
That's a decent show. But not because of him, I'm sure.
Right, but Jenny actually tried telling you that earlier, and she was yelling at the chat window. Too.
Oh, I feel terrible. I'm sorry.
She just put that in there.
It was before he said it. And Jenny's not even here to see how right she was. I'm sorry.
Oh, she knows she's right. It's okay.
Yeah, but this isn't a Nirvana song. A posthumous Nirvana track. Anyway, all right, do we have anything left on the list, Mr. Jim?
Well, sure, we can talk about another director that some people love and some people hate, Sam Raimi, and his upcoming TV Evil Dead show.
Wait, people hate Sam Raimi?
Apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Rewind that.
I would say some people probably.
Why?
I don't know, but not me.
No, not people.
All right, they're less than people then. Anyway, his Evil Dead TV show with Bruce Campbell confirmed on the show.
That's awesome. And on a related note, have you guys been watching The Strain?
No.
Where and when is that?
Guillermo del Toro wrote this series of books with Chuck Hogan called The Strain. It was about a vampire outbreak that started in New York City. And the books were really good. Well, the first one was awesome. The second one was decent. The third one was kind of, oh, really? But it was written very much like a screenplay as you read them. You could totally, like, there was lots of descriptions, and you could picture what it would look like if it, well, anyway, they made it into a mini-series. I'm going to mute my mic now and let Jason tell you the details.
Full series. Not a mini-series. Where what?
Their castle. Their wolf.
I'm not following.
The images on Google image search for The Strain is disturbing.
On FX, it's a vampire series. We are, of course, as always, perpetually behind.
You know what I noticed last time we were watching it? So you know how they have the, this program has been rated M for, and it's like violence, but then they have a special note about the nudity. Like, this show is so fucking violent, okay? There's, like, the vampire crushing people's heads, and it's the vampire. If you saw Blade 3, the vampires with the shit that comes out of their face, and it's like those kind of vampires. We're not talking sexy vampires. We're talking fucking disgusting vampires. But, oh my god, naked people, you guys.
Jason Bob gives it 3 thumbs up.
I was told that it was a good show, but I can't even look at the picture that it's showing on IMDb. It's so gross.
Now, to be fair, the actual, well, from the 2 or 3 episodes that we've seen, the vampire aspect of it has been minimal. Now, from the books, having read those, I know that as you go on in time, the vampire aspect ramps up, and sort of the grotesqueness of it, I believe, would go up as a result.
I have to also say that having read the books, Jason and I were commenting on this as we were watching an episode last night. They did a really phenomenal job of casting it with people who were basically what you would imagine as you were reading the books anyway. So like that's been really fun as someone who enjoyed, especially like I said, the first book was really good. As someone who enjoyed the books, it's been really fun to kind of say, oh my God, that's this person. That's exactly what I thought he should look like. So that's kind of cool.
They did. I didn't realize that those had been books. I've been watching. I'm a couple episodes behind, and it's so far. I really, really want to like it, but it's just not hooked me. Like I'm gonna keep watching it, give it a few more episodes, but if it does, I would like to see the vampire lore part of it increase a little bit. I think that would make it more interesting.
And, you know, I kind of feel like the books were that way, too, that, like, 80 pages into it was where I started really enjoying it, that the setup with the kind of the basics and the CDC and the family, whatever, that's all kind of just, like, getting you into the world, laying the groundwork, and that after, I would say in maybe, like, 2 or 3 more episodes, it's going to hit my favorite parts, because they're still introducing brand new characters, right? Like, the Exterminator is one of my favorite characters in the book. And we only just watched, although we've got like 3 on the TiVo now.
Yeah, we're 2 or 3 episodes into it, so Fett was the Exterminator.
That is actually a set of books that I really wanted to read when they first came out, and I never got around to it. I don't know why.
So there's another set of books, vampire books, from a writer called Larry Hama, Hama, who, in my circles at least, is famous for having taken the G.I. Joe property and written a number of issues of comic books for it from Marvel back in the 80s. And he did a series of vampire books called The Stranger, I think it was. It's a series of 3 books from Amazon. They're like $2 a pop. It's well worth your time. Very well written. And it's done in, each chapter is a perspective from a, not quite a different character because it goes back to characters, revisits characters, but it's all done from different perspectives. And the vampire lore is good. There's no sparklies or anything like that. The storyline is good, and even the way that the book is written from the different character perspectives.
Sorry, I have to interrupt you. No sparkles, no sale.
I'm sorry.
Well, if it doesn't sparkle, I might watch it.
You guys, not all that glitters is gold.
Absolutely. There are some people that sparkle and some people that don't, and we're all okay with that.
Okay, does Twilight Sparkles at least make an appearance?
But as far as I'm concerned, the ones that like the sparkles can fucking die.
You know what? Right now I have to defend. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to say
No, you don't.
Oh my God, someone take her away from this
Okay,
house.
here's the thing. I don't like her world, but her world was well thought out, and she was consistent in its application.
Now, to be fair, I liked, was it the second book or the third book where they go to Italy and they've got the backstory of the... I think that's the second. Yeah, that one was okay. Everything else outside of that was schlocky.
I'm sorry, we can talk about something else now.
Okay, well...
Too late, you broke us.
How about Marvel Unlimited then? Since I'm sure that at least 1 or 2 of us signed up for the 1 month at 99 cents that the Marvel had the special on during San Diego ComiCon.
I did not. I have a comic connection that gets me whatever I need whenever I need it. Although sometimes he disappoints me. The other day I was
like a fucking smack addict all of a sudden. I am the one. Here, first one's free. Second issue, no way.
So what you're saying?
I'm disappointed though. I asked him the other day if we had Ms. Marvel, and we don't.
Wait, Jason. How much Peter Porker do you have?
Nothing. So I have Peter Porker incorporated in other issues of other comics, but nothing. No trade paperback or anything like that.
More than 0 is all you need to know.
To be fair, she's right. More than 0.
Okay.
But he also was responsible for me reading Saga. Although he didn't give it to me, I had to find it by accident. But that's fantastic.
Whoa. I don't think... Is that... That might be true.
Why don't you have another drink?
That works. Okay.
Hey, Peter, are you going to ever make yourself a Peter Porker cosplay outfit?
No, because because I don't think it would turn out anything close to what it should look like.
No, because he already has one.
Oh, doesn't need to make it. I see.
No, but if I
will-
decided I wanted one, Jim, I would contract with your wife to make it for me.
She only makes women's clothes, Peter.
No, she'd make me a Peter Parker.
Nuh-uh,
if I
It'll be
asked.
fine. Does she really
Wait. Who says that Peter Porker has to be male?
Yeah, he could be
Cross-gender.
cross-gender.
Cross-gender, that'd be good.
So Jim, are you telling me that if I asked Romy to make me a Peter Porker outfit, she wouldn't?
I don't know.
Why don't you ask her?
Let me ask her. Hey, Romy. She's got her headphones on. Hold on.
Okay.
Romy.
Yeah, get her in here.
Oh yeah, just
Peter
yell
wants to know
louder.
if he asked you to make him a Peter Porker cosplay outfit, would you do it?
Peter Porker?
Yes, Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham. She said sure.
See, and you were the one saying
She's
she only did
confused and then interested, but she said sure.
See? All right. Well, there's something for me to take into consideration later on.
Your own custom-made Peter Porker cosplay outfit.
That is
Will it have a
absolutely-
codpiece?
I don't know, but I think Peter will be the only one at any convention everywhere dressed as Peter Porker.
Did you guys see the thing about Daniel Radcliffe going to Comic-Con as Spider-Man so that he could just like chill out and enjoy Comic-Con and not be mobbed?
I did not see that, but that's a good idea.
I think the Bryan Cranston one was the best one, though.
Didn't
What
one
was
of the
that?
guys from Mythbusters
That was-
do something similar?
That was where Bryan Cranston went in a Bryan Cranston mask as his character from Breaking Bad. And he came up to the panel and he sat down at the panel, took the mask off, and so it was still him underneath it.
How meta.
Well, that's what some of the comments said was, you know, why didn't he just dress up as Harry Potter and then he could have just gone as himself and done less work? And
He's probably sick of being Harry Potter.
well, exactly, and like I can totally see the draw of being Spider-Man and being completely, what's the word, anonymous. That's the real reason I'm not rich and famous yet, is because I don't want to be a celebrity.
Oh, is that what it is? I see.
Yep.
Dang.
I just hang out with you guys because I like you that much.
Well, Will Wheaton posted a thing on Google Plus where he
Lost a bet.
where he talks a little bit about regretting having not cosplayed.
Yeah, I can imagine. See.
I didn't see that. What was his take on it?
He just kind of thought that that Comic-Con this year was a bit unrelenting in terms of sort of demands on him. Which I don't know what to say. I mean,
Is that a first world problem?
yeah, I mean it's kind of a celebrity problem. I don't know whether that was just tired Will Wheaton being whiny, or if that if it was maybe celebrities should be able to show up to Comic-Cons and enjoy them somewhat. I don't know.
Well, if they would otherwise enjoy it.
He's expressed before that there have been situations where he was frustrated by his inability to just be. Like, this is not the first time that I can remember him posting at least a year ago, maybe a year before last, where he was just trying to go back to his hotel and he was totally wrecked and exhausted and just wanted to go to sleep. And people were like accosting him for autographs and like wanted to talk to him, and he was like, "No, it's 2 a.m. I just, I would just want to go to." And then they like wouldn't let him. And I can totally see how, especially at a con where you don't sleep hardly at all. When you do want to go to bed, you don't want people telling you no, you got to sign this thing or whatever. I can totally see how I would just want everyone to fuck right off when I had gotten to the point where I wanted to go to bed.
Yeah, he's made. I've read other stuff he's written where his point of view is, listen, I set time aside at these things so you can meet me and talk to me, and I want to talk to the fans. Fans are awesome, but it's like you said, not when I'm trying to go to bed or trying to eat dinner with my family. That's he. I think he kind of tries, from what I take of it, he kind of tries to keep a pretty good firewall there between time with fans and time just being him.
Well, and I mean, I think
can be difficult.
I think that's part of it. I mean, if you've set aside all this time to hang out with the fans, it's not like you're ignoring them and not appreciating them. You're saying, "Here's this window. You can come and bother me for this whole huge window of the con, you know." But then not on that window, I want to be able to go do my thing. I mean, like, that's one of the things that, like, going to even like the science fiction cons with, you know, writers who are not Will Wheaton huge. Well, some of them are. But like just like understanding that, you know, there are times when they are signing, and you are not supposed to ask them to sign things when they are not at their signing table, because they need to be allowed to, you know, exist and enjoy the con if they want to, and get to the next panel if they're going to a panel or presenting or whatever. And if you're accosting them for autographs in the hallway, you're stopping them from doing that. And that's why they have signings, so that you can get stuff signed there.
And besides that, that's being a dick, and that's something that Will Wheaton specifically says not to be.
Exactly.
All right. Well, getting back to the Marvel Unlimited thing. So because it was 99 cents, it was easy. It was, for me, turned into an easy. Oh, okay, $1 is, you know, I can afford $1 to see if it's something that I might possibly use.
Wait, don't you mean that I could afford the $1 for you?
Well,
you got to stop using my card, Peter.
That's true. You see, when I say me affording it, what I really mean to say is Jim affording it, but that takes a lot longer to explain every time, so I just use the shorthand. Anyway, so basically the first thing I did is I looked up the introduction of Beta Ray Bill in Thor 330-something, I think, in the early 80s, and I read through that whole story, and discovered that the Marvel Unlimited app for Android kind of stinks. It actually is working better now that there's not so many people apparently murdering Marvel servers all at one time. But I've read through a couple other stories that I've known, looked up a couple characters whose stories I hadn't read enough of, like Squirrel Girl. And now I'm reading through some of the newer Spider-Girl stuff, which is pretty good. But,
so how was the Beta Ray Bill stuff? Did it hold up over time?
Actually, I thought it did very well, with the exception of his second appearance within the Thor books, which basically involved him thwarting a plot by the Titanium Man where Titanium Man was using Vietnam veterans who were disillusioned with the government to try to overthrow the U.S. banking system or something, which didn't really work all that well. But as far as a character goes and his initial introduction, I think that held up really well.
Now, I think, but I don't honestly remember, that Beta Ray Bill was introduced during the Walt Simonson run on Thor. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, it was.
That might help too, right?
And Simonson's art was, I think, it was probably better than anybody else's at Marvel at the time, from an actual art perspective.
I was just thinking that from an execution or creative perspective, that the second incarnation might not have been as good because it was a different creator or a different executor, if you will. But I don't know off the top of my head. I know that Beta Ray Bill was introduced under Simonson's purview, but I don't know if the second storyline was underneath Simonson or not.
Yeah, it wasn't that much later, but I think it still might have been after he finished up. Okay, so there you go. Anybody else?
I'm afraid I'm not very comic booky. It's one of the core nerd things that I'm not very well versed in.
Have you read much of the Trek comics?
I read some of the Countdown stuff prior to the reboot, and that's about it.
Oh, okay.
Well, you see, Sam, that's where you and I are diametrically opposed, because I don't have much of the Trekkie or the RPG stuff, but I've got a shit ton of the comic stuff.
See, I'll prefer to think of it as complementary.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I've got 10,000 individual issues upstairs, so.
But you've at least watched all Star Trek, the animated series, right?
Not the animated series. Well, he might have.
From me?
What, Jason, you haven't watched all of the animated series?
I have watched exactly none of the animated series.
That is criminal, because there were actually some really good episodes in that.
But
You know, come to think of it, I've also watched.
Series.
Yeah. Okay, well,
Yeah,
I'll
what
just
the hell?
I'll just
What
throw
are
out How
yours?
Sharper Than the Serpent's Tooth if you just want to watch one.
Trying to remember that one. I did watch them all. I had seen a few episodes, and then when I went through to do my rewatch and everything, I watched the entire run. But it kind of blurred together between the original series and the movies, so I don't remember them very well.
I think that was the one where the animated series is where I kind of like lost the whole thing. So I watched the original series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, God Help Me, Voyager, and Enterprise, like sequentially, and the animated series is where I was like, peace out, man.
Well, see, the problem with the animated series is...
Wait, is it like the Star Wars Christmas special?
No.
A little bit.
Don't talk about that.
The animated series, they really did skimp on the animation part of it, so you don't watch the animated series for the animation. Just don't. You watch it to listen to Jimmy Doohan do like a half a dozen
Everybody.
in every episode, and also because some of the stories, apart from the animation, were really good.
To be fair, some were really bad though. Like, I mean, Treknobabble, like to some level of hell that Treknobabble does not normally descend.
They did. My experience was at its worst, it was awful, but at its best, there were a few good.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair.
So if you didn't want to watch the whole series, which I would understand, there are a couple that you could certainly go out and pick, because those are all pretty much all standalone stories. There isn't any continuity you have to worry about whatsoever. Not like Rocky and Bullwinkle, which, believe it or not, actually did have continuity.
They did.
They did, seriously.
Hey,
Also,
did
one of my
any of you
favorite-
guys see that? The movie?
No, I haven't seen the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie.
Sorry, it just popped in my head because of Peter. And no,
I know Jason Alexander was in it,
That's
but that's
funny. I
about all I
am
know.
sorry too.
I saw it.
Was it that bad?
it sounds like it was painful there, Peter.
Yeah, it kind of was. And like I actually knew, I think, going into it that I probably shouldn't have gone to it for the same reason I've never seen the Hitchhiker's Guide movie. Like I won't see it because I'm just like, no, if you screw with Douglas Adams, I will go and hunt down the people who made the film. So I actually have no idea. It might be awesome, but I don't even want to know if it's good or bad or otherwise.
I actually enjoyed it. I went in not expecting it to adhere to the book really, really closely, but it did a better job than I expected, even if they took some liberties that I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Like with the heads.
Yeah,
I fell asleep and then never
like
tried
with
to
the
watch
heads.
it again.
I really liked the Hitchhiker's movie, and I feel like there's no real Hitchhiker's canon because it has been in so many different forms of media and because it has been redone so many different times that there's no right or wrong unless Zaphod's heads aren't next to each other. That's wrong.
Yeah.
Zaphod's heads, that was kind of a sticking point.
I didn't particularly care for Alan Rickman as Marvin. Or maybe it was I didn't care for the form factor that they had Marvin in.
I think
Not sure
it's
which.
probably that you just didn't care for the way they presented Marvin. I think
Rickman was great for voice.
I think Rickman was awesome. I loved Zooey Deschanel, although she could read the dictionary and I'd fucking watch it.
Wait.
I think you mean
was that a couple different words there, or was that an adjective? Fucking.
Yep.
Okay.
I didn't think Sam Rockwell was great for Zaphod.
They could have picked a better Zaphod.
Although I don't know who I would have picked, but
Sam Rockwell would have been fine if his heads were in the right place.
I think they could have done worse than Sam Rockwell, but the moment I heard that they were making a feature film, I desperately wanted Eddie Izzard to play him. Just like desperately. I don't know. I don't know why I got that into my head. That was all I wanted to see in that part, and when it wasn't him, almost anything else was going to be a disappointment.
Okay.
I think Sam Rockwell was fine, but aside from that, it's thing.
I think Sam Rockwell does a really good egotistical maniac. Like he plays basically the same character in the Charlie's Angels movie, and I think he does a really good job of it.
Are you saying he's kind of like Samuel L. Jackson in that respect? He always plays himself as a character?
I don't think he always plays
entirely.
anything.
Because Samuel L. Jackson is always Samuel L. Jackson.
No, I don't. I think Sam Rockwell has a range. I just think that part of his range that I particularly enjoy is the egotistical maniac.
Okay, that works. All right. Do we have anything left on our list, Mr. Jim?
I don't know if anybody else has seen the premiere episode of the horribly bad TV show on ABC called The Quest.
Is this the reality show kind of?
Well, it's the quote-unquote reality show, yes, where they take everybody to. I mean, they really spin it deep. They travel to another realm, and they're supposed to compete, and they're divided up into teams, and they're staying in a castle, and the castle's got a common room where they all go together. And in the first episode, they had to split up into teams of 3, and this is where the survivor aspect of it comes into play. They do it as like a competition, and they're using scorpions. And for anybody who doesn't know what a scorpion is, it's a giant crossbow mounted on a stand. And the way they're doing it is that they've got to fire the scorpion up over a barricade into some dummies that are set up in the field. And so you've got one guy who loads the crossbow, then they've got somebody in a tower calling out directions to the other people who are supposed to be aiming the crossbow and firing it. And as boring as that sounds to describe, it's even worse to watch it. The show was horrible. And
have they canceled it yet?
Why did you watch it?
Because I wanted to see just how bad it was going to be.
Wait a minute. You couldn't watch Firefly when it was on?
Because it was fucking on. That's why he watched it.
I was genuinely curious as to how they were going to do this.
Because
and
Doctor
just
Who
how
doesn't come
corny
on
it would
until
be.
the 23rd of August. That's why.
I got to watch something. But
so you'll let
bad.
something good be canceled, but you'll make sure that you watch crappy stuff.
You
so
know,
it doesn't get
this
canceled.
myth that Peter has started about how I canceled that show.
I didn't start any myth at all.
I think it was Tom. I think we can throw him under the bus because he's not here.
We can totally throw Tom under the bus.
All right, so Tom started that lie. But
I just corroborated it. That's all.
Anyway, the show was bad, and since none of you have seen it, don't watch it because it's that bad.
We weren't planning to, but thanks.
So I wonder what they really thought the target audience for this was. It's like supposed to be D&D guys who love reality shows, or what?
People that watch reality shows.
I don't know. I think they're trying to capture the whole Lord of the Rings Hobbit audience. I don't know, but
because they had a pirate reality show when those Caribbean movies were big.
Oh, they did? I remember the Gilligan's Island one.
Well, those got canceled because I didn't watch them.
Oh, right. Right. Jim, you are the cause of every show being canceled ever.
How does it feel to hold such power?
Even before you were old enough.
Shit.
The Tick, for example, that was your fault.
Man, I love that show.
Was awesome.
You can't blame that one on me.
I can blame that. I can blame anything I want on you, actually.
You didn't watch The Tick when it was on? What is wrong with you?
I watched every episode of it.
Yeah, but you didn't get your friends to watch it.
How do you know, Peter?
Oh, you know where I work. I know these things.
Wow.
Maybe we should turn off the on-air before we lambaste each other.
All right. All right. Well, do we have any other things that we would like to go through before we wrap up for tonight?
No, my tequila is almost gone, so.
All right. Parting words from anybody?
Thanks for watching, for anybody who did.
All right, and thanks to special raconteur, the Sam.
Thank you, Wrecking Tour Sam.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for letting me babble about Star Trek and Pathfinder. I appreciate it. Any chance I
Thank
get.
you, Sam.
You fit in pretty well. We may have to have you on again sometime.
I would be down for that.
You
All
will
right.
be the most recurringest special guest if you're on a second time.
Ever. All right, good night.
Or
everybody.
now.
Thanks very much.